Hello everyone and welcome back to another true crime video, or if you're new here, welcome. Today we are going to be discussing a case that absolutely shook the United Kingdom. The murder of Sarah Everard affected more than just her family and friends. It sparked a global outcry regarding the treatment of women in today's society. Violence against women is a plague that affects women all across the world, and frankly, we are sick of it. So when you listen to today's case, listen carefully. Cases like Sarah's can serve as an example of the threat to our safety that we face every single day as women. And more importantly, we can use what happened to her to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe, taking the power away from these sick predators and back into our hands. But before we get into these shocking details, let's talk about something positive that could never fail to make you smile, and that is your dog. I have two little fluffy dogs, Willow, who's a 5-year-old Maltese mix, and a Pomeranian puppy named Dennis. All I want is to give them the healthiest diet I can, but somehow I ended up with two very picky dogs who are very particular about the food they will eat. And that is where Sundays comes in. Sundays is a dog food company that offers air-dried, human-grade food that is easy to store and serve. They are on a mission to make feeding your dogs premium nutrition as simple as possible. I've been using Sundays for like a year now, and I pay for the subscription myself, and now there's no turning back. My dogs wouldn't let me if I tried. Sundays offers human-grade food from start to finish. You will only find real food ingredients that you can not only recognize and pronounce, but that you could eat yourself. Each recipe is made with 100% meat, muscle, organs, and superfoods, and zero synthetics or artificial preservatives. The back of the bag tells you everything you need to know about what's inside. They come in ready-to-serve meals, eliminating the need for refrigeration, preparation, defrosting, or concerns about contaminants. It's shelf-stable, travel-ready, and again, full of nutrients. It's easy and healthy, which is difficult to find in a pre-made dog food. Sunday's dog food is air-dried, which gives it that soft, jerky-like texture, which my dogs are obsessed with, while preserving its nutrition and flavor, unlike kibble, which loses many of its vitamins and minerals due to high-temperature cooking. Like I said, both my dogs are very picky, and when I used to give them kibble, they just stare at me like, what the heck did you just give me? And their bowls would sit there untouched the rest of the day. But now that I give them Sundays, they both finish their breakfasts and dinners, and I know that they're getting the nutrients they need to stay healthy. So give your dog a chance to try Sundays and watch them fall in love. You can get 50% off your first order at Sundays at sundaysfordogs.com/RachelShannon, or use my code RachelShannon at checkout. Thank you again so much to Sundays for partnering with me on today's video. With that being said, let's jump right into today's case. Sarah Everard is the daughter of Susan and Jeremy Everard. She had an older brother and sister, James and Katie, and she grew up in York, England. Sarah was described by those who knew her as bright, beautiful, kind, caring, and dependable. She always put others first and had the best sense of humor. Her friends say that she was the type of person that could just brighten your mood just by her presence. She was a selfless friend, someone who would drop everything just to help someone out. Sarah was always there to listen and empathize while always being open and honest, always giving her friends genuine advice, even if it wasn't what they necessarily wanted to hear. She seemed like a very upfront and honest person, telling you what she thought even if you necessarily didn't want to hear it. And that is why she was such a good friend, because she was so genuine. Sarah graduated from Durham University with a degree in marketing. She was just 33 years old at the time of her death, and at that time, she had just started a new relationship with her boyfriend Josh after taking some time to herself to recover from a breakup with her ex. She had also just started a new job as a marketing executive and was excitingly planning a trip to Ibiza with her friends and boyfriend. Things were looking really well for Sarah. She had so much to look forward to before it was all ripped away from her suddenly and violently. The case starts on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, when Sarah spent the evening at a friend's house in Clapham, South London. She left her friend's house by 9 p.m., starting the walk back to her home in Brixton. The walk should have taken about 50 minutes. During that walk, Sarah called her boyfriend and the two spoke for about 15 minutes. Doorbell footage then captured her walking along Poinders Road, walking in the direction of her home. However, that was the last time that anyone had seen or heard from Sarah. She didn't text her friend to let her know that she made it home safely, which was something she always did anytime she visited a loved one. Her boyfriend also hadn't heard from her the rest of the night. Of course, this concerned all of them, but their alarm bells weren't totally going off quite yet. It was totally possible that she made it home and just went right to bed and totally spaced out, forgot to look at her phone. Maybe she was just exhausted from the day and forgot to text anyone before she fell asleep. It happens to the best of us. It actually happened to me last weekend. But that following morning, March 4th, she missed the meeting she had scheduled with a client, which was a big red flag. And still, her boyfriend's good morning texts and any other attempt at contacting her were going unanswered. Not only that, but anytime someone tried calling her, it went straight to voicemail, indicating that her phone was either dead or had been shut off. After not hearing from her that entire morning, her boyfriend Josh made his way to her apartment to check on her. But of course, when he got there, she was nowhere to be found. Immediately, Josh went to the police to request a welfare check. After being unable to make any contact with Sarah, whether it be at her home, work, or via calls and texts, the searches for her began. Everyone who knew her personally knew that she did not go missing on her own accord. It was totally out of character for her to just stop all contact with everyone she loved. She never would have missed work like that without even telling a colleague. Friends and family members took to social media to ask the public to be on the lookout for her. They searched any and all public spaces within Clapham Common to see if they could find any trace of Sarah anywhere or find any clues that pointed them in any sort of direction. They brought out sniffer dogs and dive teams to search any of the nearby bodies of water. They released her image to the public, which resulted in numerous tips pouring into police. Volunteers from around the community came out in droves to help in search efforts. Everyone in that community was desperate to find Sarah and bring her home safely. Now, as I stated, as Sarah walked home, she made a 15-minute call to her boyfriend. This call allowed officers to pinpoint her location using the cell towers in that area. So they were able to see where she was heading right before her phone was shut off. Based on that information, officers began collecting CCTV footage and doorbell videos from the areas where Sarah was known to last be. Sarah was known to last be wearing jeans with a colorful pattern along with a teal jacket and teal and red shoes. Normally, it would be pretty difficult to determine if someone truly was the victim in footage due to how grainy and unclear it can be, but due to how much her outfit stood out, it was actually relatively easy for officers to identify her on this CCTV footage. Within the first few days of her disappearance, officers found a few videos that showed Sarah heading home that night. Using this, police released stills that showed what she was last wearing and asked the public to come forward with any information they may have regarding Sarah's whereabouts. They also asked that anyone who may have been driving their car in that area around the time of her disappearance come forward with any dashcam footage they may have. And thankfully, this public appeal did exactly what they were hoping it would. One witness came forward with dashcam footage that was taken as they drove down the very street where Sarah was last seen. This footage showed Sarah standing next to a man on the sidewalk near a car that was parked on the street. If you watch carefully, it appears like Sarah is turning around so that her back faces the man as he approaches her. Then another witness came forward to police who said that she saw Sarah with this man on the night of March 3rd. She said that she saw the man who looked like an undercover police officer handcuffing her and arresting her. She watched as the man sat Sarah down on the ground, cuffed her, and then walked Sarah back to his car with her hands behind her back. She thought that this woman must have done something wrong, and that's why she was being arrested. It didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. But as far as officers knew, there was no report of Sarah being arrested that night. Using that dashcam footage, officers looked up the license plate to the car that they saw. They found that this car had been a rental, which had been rented out to 48-year-old Wayne Couzens. Wayne Couzens is the married father of 2 children who worked as a Metropolitan police officer from Dover, England. According to his records, he had joined the force back in 2018, and by February of 2020, he started working at the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command as an authorized firearms officer. At that time, he participated in COVID patrols to ensure that regulations were being followed. But like I said, Wayne is from Dover, which is about a 2-hour drive from London. He was not on duty on the night of Sarah's disappearance, so there is no reason that he should have been arresting her that night, and honestly, no real reason for him to even be in London. And again, her arrest was never reported to his department. And now that we know that there was a witness who saw him arresting her and he was seen on that dashcam footage, he is now the last known person to be seen with Sarah before she disappeared. Not only that, but she was seen going into his car. Using this information, by March 9th, 2021, police went to his house and questioned him. When doing so, they placed him in handcuffs and let him know that he was being arrested under suspicion of kidnapping. Now, this interview with Wayne was bizarre, to say the least. He started by saying that he didn't know Sarah. He didn't interact with her. But being a police officer, he knew that they had to have something on him if they were questioning him and arresting him like this. So eventually, he admitted that he was in a financial crisis. He was approached by a gang from Bulgaria, Romania, and Albania who ordered him to start picking up girls to bring to them. He said that he actually did detain Sarah that night, but that he dropped her off with that gang who then took her to an unknown location. The last time he saw her, she was alive and well, but now he doesn't know where she is. He said that the gang threatened to take his family away from him, so he had no choice but to comply with their demands. He said that if he could get Sarah back, he would, but he doesn't know where she is because the gang took her.
So we're here to talk to you about Sarah. Let me show you a picture. Do you know Sarah?
I don't know.
Okay. Sarah went missing. I'll show you some pictures of her on the day.
Okay.
Sarah went missing on Wednesday, and her parents obviously and her family are really worried about her now. The inquiry that's been conducted so far has led us to come and speak to you about it and to see what we know about Sarah. Okay. So, would you like to? Do you know where Sarah is?
No.
Right. Okay. Do you know anything about what happened to her?
I know that she went missing up in London somewhere, about a week ago or so, just from what I got on the news.
Okay. Have you ever personally met her?
No, not personally, no.
Have you had any interactions with her at all?
No, why would I have personal interactions with her?
It's very difficult because I can't go into a lot of the evidence because obviously that would require, that's not part of what an urgent interview is, okay? This interview is just about trying to find her. Because
sure,
she's been missing for a while now.
I'm sat in handcuffs, and so you must have something to say that I know her.
Well, as I said, you've been arrested on suspicion of kidnap, and we believe that you've been involved in her disappearance and taking her away from her family.
Okay.
So we are trying to find her. Obviously everybody is very worried about her. She's got, parents, she's got she's got siblings, she's got a girlfriend. There's a lot of people that care about her.
Sure.
You've seen her on the news, the number of people that, are reaching out about her.
Sure.
Out there looking for her every day. And she's missing. And our job, our primary job here is to find her. And to try and find her safe and well.
Okay.
Now, we believe that you know something about where she is, and that's why we're here, to look for her and to try and find her. And that's why we're talking to you now, is to try and get you to have a good think about it, and tell us anything you can about whether we might be able to find her.
Okay, well, I am in financial, and I've been lent on by, I don't know who they are. They're a group, a gang, whatever. And they told me, right, I need to go and pick up girls and give them to them. So I said, not happening. And it then came through that they're going to harm my family, take them away, and they'll use them instead. At that point I had no option to try and find somebody. So I don't, there's a couple of names. I was told a place to take her. That's it. That is all I know.
Tell me about them. I need to find them. Tell me everything you know that I
Okay.
think that you'll help me.
There was a white Sprinter van. They it was between sort of Len and Maidstone area that I dropped her off. I still don't know. I don't know. They just I just parked my car up, and then the van come up behind me, flashed me. They all jumped out, and then they took this girl. They said, you've done good, and I don't know whether my family's going to be alright still. But they threatened to take my family away from me. So at that point, I'm doing what I can to protect my family. That's it. There's a roundabout that breaks up, I guess. So this is the first big roundabout you come to. You carry straight over to Maidstone, but instead I went round that roundabout and back up another road. And at that point, I was flashed and pulled over. Guys got out, opened my door, opened that door, pushed me out against the front of the car, took the girl, drove off. That's it. They said, we'll be in touch. So I'm here, I'm off work with stress because I'm here to protect my family. I want to be here 24/7 for my family. They come from my family. I've got nothing myself. I've got no choice.
I'll go back through the route with you in a minute, alright? But how do they contact you? How did you contact them?
I tried to film one of their call girls and rip her off. So she's told them, and they've got me. So
how do they? No, but what I mean is, how do they contact you? How is it they've been in contact with you to make these threats?
They just tell me, be here, be here. So Hotel Burston down in Folkestone, got to be here. Okay, so I turned up. But I've got no mobile number, and they have got my mobile number.
They haven't.
They're obviously outside watching, following. I just, honestly.
How are they telling you to be there? How is it they're giving those directions?
Yeah, they'll come outside. So they'll be outside here.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, right, you're going to be in Folkestone at this time, or you're going to be in Ashford at this time. That's it. There's no links, no telephone numbers. I'm completely on my own, but at the same time being threatened.
Of course, this interview made investigators even more suspicious of Wayne. He clearly had something to hide, and that story he came up with was truly outlandish. It almost seems like he's kind of admitting to taking more girls than just Sarah, but at that time, he was arrested on suspicion of kidnapping of Sarah. As he waited in jail, the investigation into Wayne continued, And what I'm about to tell you is information put together by investigators who sifted through over 1,800 hours of CCTV footage, reviewed data from cell phone towers and Wayne's personal devices, as well as searches of his vehicle and home. They also dove into his background, which revealed a lot of disturbing information. Turns out, Wayne had a long history of violence and sexual offenses towards women, yet he was still able to join the police force and even get put on a special unit that was allowed to carry a firearm. So starting all the way back to when Wayne was a child, it was reported that he never really liked school. He was average academically and was known to be a bit awkward. He didn't have too many friends and mostly kept to himself. After graduating high school, he worked at an auto body shop until 2011 when he was 38 years old. Now, a few years prior to that, in 2002, he applied to join the Territorial Army based in Kent. He was able to enlist as a private, where he carried out duties during his free time when he wasn't working at the auto body shop. He did that for about 3 years before being discharged after failing to complete the required training. In 2006, he met a Ukrainian woman named Alina online. She eventually moved to the UK, and the two moved in together, eventually getting married and having 2 children. Now, while in the Army Reserve, he had always shown interest in firearms training, which led to his interest in becoming a police officer. By 2010, he joined the Civil Nuclear Constabulary, which guards nuclear sites in Kent. He held a very high position, but it was later found that he never should have had this position to begin with. According to the rules, being in debt should bar someone from being hired, but he was hired anyways despite having unpaid debts. A few years after that, he applied to be a police officer with the Metropolitan Police, but his application was initially rejected. By 2018, though, he applied again, and this time it was accepted. This meant that he was going to have to drive 2 hours to London for work, even though he still lived near Dover. He didn't want to move because he wanted to be close to his family, like his mother, but he really wanted this job as a police officer. Finally, by February of 2020, he applied and was accepted into the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command in London, which meant that he was responsible for providing armed protection to the Palace of Westminster and the diplomatic embassies in London. As a part of this job, he was also tasked with enforcing COVID restrictions. As far as I was able to find, though, he was not tasked with making arrests or detaining people for these offenses. Again, unless they posed a threat to the buildings he was tasked with protecting. All throughout this time, Wayne had been accused of multiple different violent or sexual offenses. In 1995, he was investigated after a woman reported that he attempted to abduct her and her child at knife point. He was also the subject of multiple investigations involving indecent exposure to women. There were 8 total instances of women reporting indecent exposure occurring in 2015, 2020, and 2021. However, in all of these cases, the investigators never really followed through with any charges. There were also a few colleagues of his who came forward with reports that he had shown them videos of violent pornography, one of them depicting a police officer murdering a woman. He was also accused of rape by 2 victims in 2016 and 2017, but these instances actually were not reported until after Sarah's disappearance because the women weren't able to identify the man responsible until they saw him on the news. But either way, him even being the subject of those indecent exposure investigations, it would have shown up on his background checks. Despite this, he was still allowed to join the police force. So that is the information we have on his background. So now let's get into the evidence that relates to Sarah's disappearance. They found that Wayne had made multiple unexplained visits to and from London from Dover multiple times over the course of a month. He traveled there at least 3 times, on January 23rd, February 5th, and February 14th. According to his work records, he had no reason to be in London on those dates. Then he returned to London in a rental car once more on the evening of March 3rd. He was not on duty that time, and the rental car was not related to his job at all, even though he was seen wearing his police belt. Then it was found on his Amazon account that on February 10th, he purchased a set of standard issue police handcuffs and a key, which were later found in the front seat of his personal car. According to CCTV footage, on the afternoon of March 3rd, he parked his personal car in a secluded area of Dover where there were no houses or businesses. He then made his way back to his house where he grabbed the rental car and headed to London. That night, he told his family that he was supposed to work a night shift, even though, again, he was not actually scheduled to work, nor did he check in with command base. Instead, once in London, he drove around to multiple different areas, most likely in an attempt to find a woman to take advantage of. At this point, police believed that those prior trips to London were made to scope out different areas and see what kind of people would be around and find the best spots where women would be walking alone. He then purchased those handcuffs and headed to London on March 3rd, with the intention of finding a woman to take advantage of. By around 9:30 p.m. that night, Wayne finally found what he had been looking for, a woman who was walking alone. According to that dashcam footage, by around 9:34 p.m., Wayne stopped Sarah on the side of the road, most likely identifying himself as a police officer. He then showed her a warrant card, making her believe that she was under arrest for breaking COVID protocols, because again, she was walking at night, probably after curfew. He then put her in the back of his car and drove off. According to cell phone data, it was around this time that Sarah's cell phone was turned off, but Wayne's phone was still on. This indicated that he drove Sarah about 80 miles over to Dover, where he transferred her to his personal vehicle. Again, this was done in a remote area so that no one would see or hear anything. After this, he drove to various places around Dover, most likely staying on back roads and isolated areas. Most likely, this is where he took Sarah. By 2:34 a.m., now going into March 4th, Wayne was then seen on CCTV footage at a BP petrol station where he purchased some soft drinks. There, he appeared calm and collected, nothing out of the ordinary. The next thing we know, at 8:14 a.m., he stopped at a pastry shop in Dover to buy some hot chocolate and a tart. After that, he was then seen traveling to a river near Sandwich, about a 20-minute drive from Dover, before returning home. The time that he returned home matched up to about when he would normally return home from a night shift, so his family never suspected a thing. By March 5th, life went on as normal for Wayne. That morning, he left the home, once again going to the petrol station to buy gas. There, he also purchased 2 garbage bags. After that, he went to an area within Hodes Woods in Kent. This was an area of land that Wayne and his wife had purchased years prior. He spent some time there before heading back to Dover. On the way home, he stopped to get some food and drink for himself. He then returned home where he made his children dentist appointments and the dog a vet appointment. Once again, when making these appointments, he was calm as can be. Later that same day, he returned to Hodes Woods where he spent some time near a pond that was also on his property. On March 6th, Wayne was scheduled to work, but he actually sent an email to his work saying that he needed to refrain from firearm duties. He said that he injured himself and needed to take a few days off of work. The following day, on March 7th, Wayne then took his wife and children to a camping spot in Hodes Woods where his children played as they normally would. Then, by March 9th, Wayne factory reset his phone, hoping to wipe it clean of all of its data. That was the same day in which officers went to his house to question him that first time, so somehow he knew what was coming. So now we are all caught up in the timeline. Now, based on all of the information with this cell phone data, police had an idea of what happened. Now, they just needed to visit all of the locations Wayne visited that night to see if they could find any more incriminating evidence. Specifically, officers wanted to search that area of Hodes Woods in Kent since it was the land that belonged to Wayne and an area that he visited multiple times after Sarah's disappearance. And once there, they found a large fridge in that area, which was among other discarded items located along the tree line. Within that fridge, they found remnants of burned and charred material. After finding this, investigators then searched the pond on the property. And within that pond, they found 2 large garbage bags, both of which matched the ones that Wayne was seen buying a few days earlier at the petrol station. And within those bags, they found the burned, charred remains of Sarah's body, along with her clothing and other possessions. When they first found the body, they knew that it was Sarah, but she had been burned so badly that they couldn't officially make the identification. Instead, they had to use dental records to definitively confirm that the body did belong to Sarah. Of course, after this horrific discoveries, officers sent her body to the medical examiner for an autopsy. There, it was determined that Sarah had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. It was determined that it would have taken about 2 minutes of applying pressure to her neck to kill her in the way that she was. She died a terrifying, slow, painful death after being violated by someone she thought she could trust, someone who was supposed to uphold the law and protect her. And then her remains were burned and thrown away like trash. As the autopsy was going on, officers also set out to another area where Wayne had visited, that river in Sandwich. There, divers were sent to search the area, and by March 16th, they discovered Sarah's cell phone, which had the SIM card removed. So now I want to summarize the information that I presented up to this point and paint a picture of what exactly investigators believed happened. Sarah's death appears to have been a meticulously thought-out plan. He spent a month scoping out the area in London in search of the perfect victim and location to take her. He purchased various items in order to restrain his victim and follow through with his plan. On the night of March 3rd, as I stated, Wayne stopped Sarah under the guise that she was being arrested. He placed her into the back of his car and then drove her 2 hours to Dover, where he then transferred her to his own personal vehicle. It's believed that he restrained her in that car using Velcro that he had previously purchased. That Velcro would later be found in his car, and DNA on that Velcro matched Sarah. At some point during that painstakingly long drive, Sarah probably realized what was happening. Then she was transferred to a car where she probably saw that there was protective film on the carpet. This film has never been recovered, but it was purchased right before Sarah's murder, and so it can be deduced what it was used for, and it was probably discarded after. Why would someone leave that kind of film in their car? After she was placed in his personal vehicle, he drove around to different areas in Dover. At some point in the night, he pulled over and raped Sarah before strangling her to death, most likely with his own hands. He strangled her for over 2 terrifying minutes as she slowly ran out of oxygen and died. She most likely died sometime before 2:34 a.m. when Wayne was seen on CCTV footage at the gas station buying some snacks. After this, he drove over to that river in Sandwich. He removed the SIM card from her phone. He then threw the phone in the river, hoping that it would never be found. It's also thought that he probably took her phone immediately when he stopped her on the side of the road and arrested her, and probably turned it off immediately because, again, as we know from earlier, that's when her phone was either shut off or died, and then it was, again, later discarded. We don't know exactly what he did with her body for the hours that followed, but he most likely hid her body in that fridge pretty soon after killing her. She remained there for the rest of the night, but then by the morning of March 5th, Wayne purchased gas in a plastic container along with those 2 garbage bags. He then spent some time at home making various appointments and spending time with his family as normal. After family time, he went to his property in the woods, armed with the gas and trash bags. There, he set fire to Sarah's body inside that fridge. He left her burning there for several hours as he returned back home. Later that day, he returned to the woods and placed the burned remains in the trash bags before dumping them in the pond and returning home. The following day, he called off of work and took his family to the very spot in the woods where he had just burned a young woman's body just hours prior. He let his children play in the area, knowing what he just did, knowing that there was a body in that pond, a body that he put there. By March 9th, again, he must have gotten word that officers were showing up to his home to question him because just 40 minutes before they arrived, he factory reset his phone. So any evidence there would have been missed, but thankfully the location data said everything they needed it to. He was questioned at his home and tried coming up with this insane story, but obviously nobody bought it. He was initially arrested on kidnapping charges, but after the discovery of her body, he was hit with additional charges of murder. After being charged with murder, Wayne pleaded not guilty and awaited his trial in jail. After the arrest of this police officer in connection to the murder of a young woman, of course, the community was pissed, understandably so. Already, as a woman, we have to take so many precautions to protect ourselves. We shouldn't be walking alone at night, never run alone, and only wear one headphone. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Don't look at your phone for too long when walking in a parking lot or along the sidewalk. Stay in groups. Check in with friends if you're out alone. So many things that, as women, we shouldn't have to do, but they're our unfortunate reality. But to add to that, the very person that was tasked with serving and protecting this very population is the one who harmed Sarah. After the arrest was made, a vigil was organized by Reclaim These Streets to remember Sarah. They made the promise to keep social distancing and wear masks, making every effort to work with the city to ensure safety at their gathering. But just hours before the gathering was set to take place, the Metropolitan Police, the very police force that Wayne worked for, they issued a statement. They threatened to take necessary and proportionate enforcement action on anyone who showed up to the gathering because this gathering was against COVID rules. Despite this, 1,500 people bravely showed up carrying banners, signs, flowers, and stuffed toys, telling officers that they have a right to gather, they have a right to remember Sarah, and they have a right to speak the truth. The vigil began with a moment of silence and lighting candles for Sarah, but pretty quickly, officers began to intervene. They took down the speakers. They took down posters and tributes to Sarah. They began arresting attendees, trampling the flowers and tributes left to Sarah in their path. They started pinning down young women who were in attendance, cuffing them and removing them from the area. Images of one young woman being knelt on by officers and placed into cuffs made its way on social media, and people were outraged, as I am getting right now. The organizer of the vigil, Jamie Klinger, said, quote, "It was devastating to watch men, especially police, kneel on the backs of women at a vigil about police killing a young woman." The irony of this situation is just enraging. COVID precautions were placed to control the public in an effort to keep them safe. Yet those very precautions were taken advantage of by one of their own, a police officer, who used his status and those precautions to arrest a woman and then violently kidnap, rape, and strangle her to death. And instead of allowing the public to gather and memorialize her, they used physical force against these women at a literal demonstration against a police officer using physical force against a woman. This was done in the name of public safety, ignoring the public safety concerns that is currently plaguing women all over the world. Violent men hurting women. This was something I wanted to highlight in this video as a way to expose the hypocrisy within our governing agencies that exist within all of our communities. I'm so jaded to the point that it's actually hard to believe that any of these agencies actually have anyone's safety in mind. Instead, they make up these seemingly arbitrary rules and enforce them at their will, ignoring the real problems that we face every single day. So if there's one thing to take away from this portion of the video, it's that just don't blindly follow the crowd. Don't blindly support any public figure or agency. Use your own mind to make decisions on what you think is best. And when it comes time, use your voice and your vote to enact the change that you want to see. Because nobody has your best interests in mind except for you and your loved ones. So that is exactly what 1,500 women did. They said, screw your rules. We are going to gather. It is our right. We are going to remember Sarah. And they were taken advantage of because of that. So if that enrages you, you're not alone. So now let's go back to the details of this case. With the trial looming, Wayne underwent psychiatric evaluation. Apparently, he had sustained a head injury while alone in his cell, so he had to be hospitalized. It was clear that he was exhibiting self-harming behaviors. It was also said by multiple people who knew Wayne growing up that he was just always a weird guy. He never really had a healthy social life. Before meeting his wife online, he never really had any romantic relationships. Yes, he acted mostly normal around colleagues, but still, something was wrong with him. It was found that Wayne had been suffering from financial issues at the time. He suffered from a lack of sleep and tinnitus, which is a constant ringing in the ear. Although there is no psychiatric history in his past, it's thought that he may have suffered from episodes of mild depression. However, none of what they found is enough to explain away or really excuse his actions. There's nothing to say that he suffered from any sort of mental impairment enough to prevent him from knowing right from wrong. He was a violent offender who was accused of multiple rapes, multiple indecent exposures, and even attempting kidnapping throughout his life. And based on how calculated his plan was, based on how calm his demeanor was all throughout this, it's possible that this isn't the first time he carried out a crime like this. He was way too methodical, way too thought out for this to be his first serious offense like this. Either that or his training as a police officer made that possible. And he truly is just so emotionally stunted that raping and murdering a young woman just simply didn't faze him. And he was confident that he wouldn't be caught. Again, maybe based as his status as a police officer. Either way, after spending just 3 months behind bars, Wayne Couzens actually changed his plea. On June 8th, he pleaded guilty to kidnapping and rape. Then, by July 9th, he finally pleaded guilty to the murder. At the sentencing hearing, Sarah's family members and friends all read their victim impact statements, emphasizing just how much this horrific crime has impacted their lives. None of them will ever be the same. They will have to live every day knowing that someone they loved so dearly suffered so greatly in her final hours. They will never get to watch her flourish in her life. She will never get married or have children. She will never get to watch her siblings do the same. She and her family are all missing out on so many wonderful things that come with life, all because this disgusting sexual predator selected her at random and felt entitled to her and her life. The judge also made it known that what Wayne did is horrific. He used his position as an officer to lure an unsuspecting victim before inflicting unspeakable horror on her. Due to all of the aggravating factors in this case, Wayne Couzens was handed a life sentence on a whole life order. That means that he will never be released from prison.
Well, Lord Justice Fulford has just handed down this whole life tariff to Wayne Couzens. He will never see the light of day again. He will be taken off to prison to spend the rest of his life behind bars. This is the verdict or the sentence that the family of Sarah Everard and indeed the prosecution had been calling for, just because of the horrific nature of this crime. The fact that Wayne Couzens didn't just kidnap, rape and murder a woman from the street, which is a horrific enough offence, but he used his authority, his office as a police officer, to coerce this woman, to trick this woman into believing that she had somehow broken COVID regulations. He wasn't on duty on the day that he arrested Sarah Everard on the street. She'd been at dinner with friends in South London, had walked through Clapham Common and was heading home towards Brixton that evening when she was stopped in the street by Wayne Couzens. He was dressed in plain clothes but did have a Metropolitan Police issue belt with handcuffs and other items on it. He flashed his identity at this young woman, his warrant card, his identity card, to say he was a police officer before arresting her. According to the judge, he was convinced as he passed his sentence on Wayne Couzens that he did indeed use those COVID regulations to try to trick this young woman into believing that she had somehow broken the law. She was handcuffed and placed in the back of the vehicle that he had hired and taken on this 80-mile journey to the Kent coast, where she was raped and then strangled.
Finally, an appropriate sentence coming out of the UK. Normally, we see far too light of sentences coming from across the pond, but I do think the fact that he used his position as an officer in this crime, that really sealed his fate. Of course, Wayne appealed his sentence, but as far as I can see, it stands as is. He will remain in prison for the rest of his life. And at this point, all I can do is hope that everyone in prison knows that he is in for violence against women, because other inmates typically don't take too kindly to that. I also want to note that after his arrest was made public, those other victims of rape and indecent exposure have come forward with their reports. Seeing his face on the news made them realize that he was the one responsible. So he has been charged with rapes and a few other indecent exposure charges as well. But that is all of the information I have on today's case. It's been a while since I've covered a case like this one, but they are so very important to continue talking about. As I stated, we women already have to worry about so many things when we're just trying to live our lives. It's not fair. We shouldn't have to do these things to protect ourselves, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it anyways. The reality is that women are more vulnerable because there are predators out there looking to take advantage of us. So as I stated before, the best thing we can do to fight against these monsters is to protect ourselves. Don't allow them to take advantage of us. That means being aware of your surroundings. That means questioning an officer when you're stopped. There's no rules against calling your local police station to make sure that whoever pulled you over is a real police officer. If you're being detained, or even if you're being pulled over for a traffic violation, let the officer know that you're calling in to make sure they are legit. Ask them for their badge number and record the interaction if needed. If they're a good officer, they will understand that you're just trying to protect your own safety. Situations like the one Sarah was in are particularly tricky because when you're in trouble, the last thing you want to do is make the situation worse by questioning them or not cooperating. But trust me, even if you have an inkling, if you have any sort of gut feeling that something is wrong, take matters into your own hands. Because even in Sarah's situation, yes, Wayne was a real police officer, but he was not on duty that night. So if she had called in, then maybe she could have known that he wasn't actually there to arrest her. Maybe it wouldn't have gone that way. Who knows? Of course, I'm not victim blaming at all, but I'm just saying that if a situation happens like this one to you, it's a good idea to call the local police station, tell them the officer's badge number, and say, hey, is this person an officer and are they on duty? I don't think there's any problem with doing that. Beyond this, of course, I want to remind you all to just be aware of your body and what's around you. Try not to walk home alone at night, but if you absolutely have to, call someone. Talk on the phone the entire walk home, preferably on speaker so that you're not distracted by holding the phone up to your ear. Also because if an offender hears a voice on the other end, they may be deterred from approaching you. If you can't call anyone, if it's too late or no one's answering, either share your location or maybe even put your phone close enough to your ear or put a headphone in and pretend like you're talking to someone. They'll either think that you're loco and talking to yourself or talking to a real person. I think either will work in your favor. And overall, please just be responsible, protect yourself, don't rely on anyone, not even law enforcement, for your own safety. You are the only person you can rely on 100% of the time. You are your own first line of defense. So please, if you take anything else from this video, it's just to please do what you can to keep yourself safe, keep your loved ones safe. The more we do this, the less opportunities these creeps will have to take advantage of us. If you have any more tips that you'd like to share with your fellow ladies, comment them down below. But that is where I'm going to end today's video, and now I want to hear what you all think. Do you think Wayne has done this before, or was this his first victim? What do you think of the police reaction to the vigil held? And do you think that the public outrage was warranted over this entire case? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you liked this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, TikTok, and Facebook. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to also fill out the Google form, which is listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.